Oranges in other parts of the world are orange in color, but how come in Nigeria oranges are green? Shutter speed controls how much light is allowed to hit the sensor per second. Examples are 1/50th of a second, 1/10th of a second, 1/200th of a second, 1/300th of a second, up to 1/4000th of a second. The shutter speed affects motion blur. The lower the shutter speed, the more motion blur or blur. And the faster the shutter speed, the less motion blur or blur you will have in your video or image, creating sharper images. That's the fast shutter speed, so less light is hitting the sensor. The rule is that your shutter speed should be 2 times your frame rate. So if you're shooting at 25 frames per second or 24 frames per second, your ideal shutter speed should be 1/50th of a second. So 2 times your frame rate at 25, 24, 23.98, your shutter speed should be 50. But that doesn't mean all the time it must be 2 times your frame rate. In the movie Saving Private Ryan, you notice that jittery feeling. That was a slower shutter speed. Shutter speed is also called shutter angle, and the ideal shutter angle should be 180 degrees. Setting your shutter speed twice your frame rate creates for a more cinematic feel, a more natural motion blur, like your eyes would see. An example of a slower shutter speed is 1/10th of a second or 1/20th of a second. And a faster shutter speed is 1/500th of a second or 1/1000th of a second or 1/2000th of a second. Aperture controls how much light the lens allows to go through it, hitting the sensor. Different lenses have different aperture rating. For example, this lens I'm holding, the 50mm f1.4, opens as wide as f1.4. Aperture is measured in f-stops, f1.0, f2.0, f1.8, f1.6, f2.4, f2.8, f5.0, f22. So the wider the aperture of this lens, the more light to go through it. This opening and closing are made possible by elements in the lens. Over here I have an f4.0 70-200 Canon lens. So this lens opens as wide as f4.0. Here's a Sigma 70-200 f2.8 lens. This lens opens up to f2.8. The aperture also affects the depth of field, as you see in cinematic films where the subject is in focus and the background is out of focus. They are usually used to isolate particular parts of a shot. So the higher the depth of field, example f22, you notice that not a lot of light goes through the lens and everything comes into focus. The lower the f-stop, say f1.4, the more light is allowed into the shot, hence more things are out of focus and a little bit of things in the frame are in focus. ISO is the measurement of the camera. It controls how sensitive your camera sensor is to light. So the higher the ISO value, the higher the sensitivity of the sensor to light, and the lower the ISO value, the less the camera sensor is sensitive to light. As you increase your ISO past the 1000 ISO mark, in some cameras you begin to introduce noise, or what is also known as grain, into your video. In cameras like the Panasonic that I'm filming on, when you go above 1000 in low lit areas, then images begin, or the video begins to look grainy or noisy. But in full frame cameras like the Canon 5D Mark II, 3, 4, or the Sony A7S or A7R, or other full frame line of cameras, they handle low light situations, allowing you to go as high as 1600, 2000 ISO, still giving you a clean image. So this is very important when you're choosing a camera. And that's it guys today on today's episode of shutter speed, aperture and ISO. Please leave a like, please subscribe and comment on my video. See you guys again next time when I talk about adapters for lenses.